Traditional banks throughout Central America, Mexico, and the Andean countries, and even the Southern Cone, are aggressively implementing remittance programs and partnerships to expand products and generate new clients. To mention one example that the IDB has supported, Su Casita, a market leader in low-income housing in Mexico, with about a $2.5 billion loan portfolio, recently launched a program to meet demand for Mexican mortgages originating with buyers living and working in the United States. This company has established marketing offices in various U.S. cities, and in the last few months has sold over 650 mortgages to U.S. customers for purchases of new homes in Mexico. At the IDB, we believe that over the next 5 years, remittance systems can be entirely transformed with increased use of technology, more competition, including the entry increasingly of more banks in the years to come. Remittances are becoming one of the primary entry points by unbanked populations into the formal system, a key mechanism for advancing towards the greater financial democracy that the region desperately needs to make progress against poverty and inequality. While remittances are the most evident way by which the movement of peoples and immigration can contribute to prosperity in Latin America, they are not the only way. These migrant communities are creating large markets for Latin American companies, from ethnic food producers to builders of retirement communities to call centers. They are also catalysts for increasing the demand for Latin products, such as pop music, as well as other segments of the population in their host countries. And those that have built businesses around increasingly looking back home for expansion opportunities, bringing capital knowledge and valuable commercial connections. There are many more ways migrants are contributing to prosperity in Latin America. By engaging in philanthropy, political activism, and just by providing examples of self-made success, they're increasingly having a positive impact back home. I sincerely hope that industrialized countries will have the foresight and good sense to move towards more equitable and effective immigration policies, not only because these can be a boom to growth and prosperity throughout the world, but because it is in their own strategic interest, especially as their populations age. Our country's men and our women and men who have left their nations of origin to pursue their destinies abroad have shown just how far those dreams can take us.
Has anyone attempted to look at the negative economic side of remittances? But one of the things that we're concerned about is the social disintegration of families and the economic cost that that has on a country like Honduras, with so many kids without their parents falling into the hands of gangs and the policing problems, and obviously the net effect of that being a very serious discouragement to foreign investment.
What do you see in the people that you see that initially in the focus groups in the United States? One, they're very optimistic about their being here. They feel secure. They feel optimistic of their future and that of their families. They want to go back home. They follow closely what happens in their country. They worry about the politics in their country. They follow it closely. They worry about the U.S. policies towards their countries. And we started to test more than anything, more than looking at the sociological aspects, to develop ideas on what kinds of products to match remittances, not cash to cash, but account to account. And if you move them as account to account, then increasingly you can move in the direction of creating really an impact on development. And this means that it has to work through the financial systems of the countries.
I'm concerned not only about some of the things that you referred to in your previous answer, which have to do with the social aspects of this. What happens, however, to the economies of these countries, aside from the social aspects, particularly small countries that have a huge amount of income coming from abroad? Doesn't it have a distorting effect on exchange rates, making the currencies overvalued, making it much more difficult for the countries to be competitive. And if the labor force is not there and it's elsewhere, what does it do in terms of the ability to create jobs and industry there? Isn't it some kind of paradoxically, a form of welfare that is perpetuating an economic system that may be not viable for the long run? And then finally, just my combination question and comment ends with this observation. Isn't it a paradox that while the rich are still taking their money out and investing it in places like this town, it's the poor that are going back and reinvesting in their country? Thank you.
Over time, the average amount of the remittances seems to be growing, which strongly shows the prosperity of those immigrants in the United States. And therefore, they're willing to send more money to their families. And they understand, you know, in the research that we have done, they understand that they're critical, one, for the success of their families, but more interestingly, that the force they represent for development in their countries. So I think what's important here is for financial institutions to get deeper into this. This cannot happen simply. You got to let the market work, and that's what hasn't been efficient. It's been working through microfinance, through NGOs, through different kinds of institutions. That those barriers need to go down. They need to be flowed into accounts. More products need to be developed.
Mr. President, you had indicated that you foresee the continuation of this flow to growth. In what basis are these estimations being constructed? Because what we see is more protectionism. It's more difficult for people to live abroad and to work abroad, even here in the United States. Why can we anticipate that such more protectionism is going to continue not to affect this flow of capital to the Latin countries?
Look, well, first of all, I think a lot will depend on what happens on the whole immigration discussion. I, as a Colombian, always say that I am optimistic by nature, and I see that, hopefully, that there will be a good immigration bill coming out of the U.S. Congress. If this happens, and we're measuring that as we speak, you know, theory would tell you that if that were to happen, the likelihood of remittances dropping would be high, simply because many of these families would immediately integrate, and we would stop what David was saying, you know, related to this breakup of families. All of a sudden, there would be an incentive to be together now that there is a legalized form of immigration. But we're studying that. We don't know what the impact of that would be until it happens. Yes, there are trends of for instance, certain movements of taxing these remittances, which I think would be very negative. And, you know, yes, there are protectionist forces the world over, not just in the United States. And I think that's part of the cycles of globalization, frankly, as I see it.